Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us for at the live Q&A for Lesbian Shorts Program 1. I'm Marina Yurieva. I'm the media director of Outcome CT, and today here with us the creators of two wonderful movies, Abby and Emily Go to Palm Springs, with Hellin Kay, who's the creator of it, and four creators of that will be hard. I tried to remember it. Feminist theory and how it relates to patriarchal dividends.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, guys, from feminist theory, I'm not gonna do the full name ever again. When I read it the first time and when I was going to watch it, I was like, oh my God, please not that. It's going to be so boring. And when I watched it, it's so amazing how it's made, and it's so much fun, and it talks about really important questions. So maybe you can tell a little bit about yourself and how you created this movie, and yeah, anything you want.
Matt, you want to go ahead and start us off with the creation story?
Sure. Well, the impetus for the story essentially came out of a real life incident involving Heather and Kirstie. I was dabbling in learning how to cook a couple years ago, and I had Heather and Kirstie over my apartment to dinner. I made a nice dinner with a couple of other friends, and a friend of mine who I invited, thinking she'd never come, but she did. She snuck off and drank all the wine. She got really drunk, and we were all supposed to go finish dinner, and we were actually going to go do karaoke at a bar that Katie was bartending at. That was the plan. So I announced, like, hey, let's all go do karaoke. Let's go do the thing. And all of a sudden, this woman, my other guest, is really drunk and slurred words, that she didn't really feel like going to karaoke, and that she didn't really feel like going to karaoke, and that she wanted to know if Heather and Kirstie wanted to go into my bedroom to have a threesome.
Oh my God.
And she said this, and I think we all tried. I know I did. I tried to laugh it off as it was a joke, which it wasn't a joke. And and then she knew she misspoke, and she just looked around the table, pointed at everyone, and went, I just said what everyone here is thinking. That's who I am. And I did to let her go lay down in my room. And I didn't know this woman well enough to let her sleep in my bed. So I walk Heather and Kirstie out, and I'm like, listen, I'm really sorry about that. I got to get this woman out of my fucking apartment. So I'm going to have to cancel the plans. And I'm so sorry about her behavior, the whole to-do. And they were like, oh, don't worry, we're used to it. And that was the inspiration for this, that it's not just creepy. It's mostly creepy men, but it's not just creepy men.
Yeah, and that's so true. And I don't think I ever seen a film about that issue before, about other members of LGBTQ community, or specifically lesbians, that treat other women like that. But it's so common. I think everybody can relate to that.
Yeah.
So you guys all known each other before the film, and then you decided to make it. How did it go? Kirstie or Heather?
Yeah, it was, this happened, and as Matt said, we were kind of like, oh, no big deal. It happens all the time. He was like, what? And then the four of us had been wanting to make something together, so we just kind of started sitting down and brainstorming, and of course, bringing Katie in, she's like, yeah, this stuff happens to women. This is like normal, whether it's from men, from other women, whoever. So the four of us just started brainstorming and came up with this concept, and it really evolved as it went. And like the Katie wanting to bring in, I'll let her speak on this, but the silent film music and look and all of that was really a cool addition that added this perspective that I don't think would have ever been there originally. And yeah, it was
the montage of the guys in the beginning too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Katie, do you want to elaborate more on all of that?
Yeah. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to include this the silent film era kind of it's so long ago, 100 years ago, and as women we still have so much we're still fighting for as far as equal rights go. And even in this situation, in the beginning, the opening montage, all of the one-liners that are said are one-liners that have been said to these girls and lots of girls for, all forever, still dealing with that. And it's inappropriate and it's really demeaning. And it's just kind of accepted still. And 100 years ago, 1919, 1920, women were given the right to vote. That's 100 years ago. And we are still kind of finding that equal place as women. So I just like that little whimsical throwback to the that type of the time that's passed since then hasn't evolved as much as they thought it would when we got the right to vote.
Right. Yeah, that was really cool. Thank you. So let's go to Helen and Abby and Emily go first. So you presented another film that I just love. Like these two films, I think were one of my favorites. And Abby and Emily, it raises another question that's also very important and very, very relatable about the relationship between people in a lesbian couple and how sometimes people love each other so much and you can see that love, but it's also very hard to communicate, it's hard to build the relationships. And I watched the film 2.5 times. I couldn't watch the third because I was just getting frustrated. It's that feeling that I can remember that when it's happening to me, and I couldn't.
I'm so glad to hear that because that makes me really happy. Not that I want you to feel that way, but this for me it came out of my own relationship, obviously, and this frustration that I had with my partner trying to communicate in the beginning of our relationship, and we were just so different, and we came from different backgrounds, we communicated differently, we saw the world differently, and it was just literally night and day trying to come together. And that rawness, I am really thrilled to hear you say that it was hard to watch a third time, because I think it is really hard because it's very real. I mean, I took some of the conversations from real life, a lot of the stuff that happened, but everyone that's watched it, thankfully, has said, oh my God, like my blood and my nerves, everything was on edge because it's real and it's so difficult to communicate. And the whole point was, regardless of your sexual orientation, your sexuality, no matter who you are, no matter what kind of relationship it is so difficult to communicate with another human being, even when you really love them. And oh man.
Yeah, and it's all the details of them fighting and how one moment she's looking online her wedding ring, and the other moment they're just wanting to kill each other. And it's insane, but it's also I haven't seen any films like that, and I think that's important to talk about it. That it's not just everything, you call, you move in together, and it's strangers and you time.
Well, I purposefully wanted to make it contentious, and it doesn't draw any conclusions. It doesn't tie anything in any bow. It leaves it all kind of open-ended because we really don't know. But I think it's really important to talk about this stuff because, yeah, there is this implication that, once you fall in love and, everything's great. and it's just a bunch of bullshit, really. The more in love you fall and the further you go in your relationship, the better it gets, the harder it can be. So yeah, it was actually really difficult for me on set directing sometimes. One of my, Jessie Cohen, who plays Abby, there were 2 instances, and she and I laughed about this. You know, I mean, she's an actress, and she can relate to kind of getting really deep into emotional stuff and going with it. But there were 2 instances where I nearly teared up giving her direction because it was so emotional, all of it, for everyone. So yeah, it was interesting.
And which one of Abby and Emily were you? I think you were Abby, right?
Well, yes, I'm definitely, Abby is definitely based on me. Yeah, and the conversation with the best friend, Abby's best friend, Liz, that, I hope my best friend doesn't kill me for saying this, but that conversation is almost verbatim, line for line, me and my best friend after a fight with my partner. Her giving me advice, and it just, you know, her and her partner have been together 14 years. And she says, well, we just got better at communicating 2 years ago. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like 14 years and you just got better at it 12 years in? That can't be right. Like, I don't know whether to laugh or cry. I don't know if it's encouraging or an absolute nightmare.
That's true. So, all of you have very short films. They're about 10-15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
How many people does it take to create such a film?
So many.
Pulling in favors.
Trying to think of our credits. A lot. I mean, that bar scene day, how many people did we have on set? 20?
Yeah, about 15 to 20,
25 or something, at least that one day.
Yeah. We got the location for a discount, hush hush, and we snuck in the back door and we snuck out the back door. Rolled everything in, rolled everything out.
That's filmmaking in LA.
With the location, we were really blessed because the owner of the bar that we filmed at, they're independent filmmakers. And I happened to live across the street from one of their sister bars. And so I started a film festival a couple years ago, and they've been really supportive of that. And they let us do it for free. So that was also, it was a blessing. They were really understanding. Because in LA, to shoot in a bar, I mean, that's at least $1,000. And we got there. They were very kind to us. It wasn't free, but it was really kind.
Yeah, we had a similar type of crew. We had about 20 people on set, and we also I learned over the years, like I've done so many low budget shoots, and you know, working as a fashion photographer, and I work in the fashion industry, and I've learned over the years how to kind of finagle free locations. And believe it or not, we got Sparrow's Lodge and the Ace Hotel restaurant at no cost. Yeah, I mean, we paid for the room because I put my actresses up at Sparrow, so that was like, but it was a couple $100 a night for them to stay there. Their location fee, I think, is $3K, and it was a miracle. And then I had a friend who does PR for the Ace Hotel, so I approached her. I've known her for over a decade, and she was like, "Yeah, sure, it's fine."
That's amazing.
So, yeah, about 20 people. Not including those other people, like the PR person, like the people who made the arrangements. So probably, I'd say about 30 total logistically. And then if you count the people who, you know, contributed to the Save the Spark campaign, I think we're into like 150. So yeah, a lot of people. And it's really crazy and it took a year. I don't know how long it took you guys, you know, from start to finish, but for me, from the time I started writing this little short, which was basically almost like a diary entry, from the moment I started writing it to finishing it was probably almost 2 years. Then day one to finishing it was a year. So, you know, for 14 minutes, it's crazy. My partner, who doesn't work in our industry, she works in animals. Well, she works in essential services. And she was like, oh my God, like she could not believe the amount of time and effort for 14 minutes. It's like, I don't want to. Good luck with that.
I think we were similarly probably about 2 years start to finish, right?
Easily, because Grant was there for the dinner incident and he moved out in 2017, so it was before that.
True. If you include the inspiration. But I just glanced at our credits list and it's about 50 people total.
Wow, that's a lot of work for 14
minutes or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our film was only like 8 minutes, right?
Yeah, it's about 9.
Yeah. A lot of passion, blood, sweat, and tears, and everything, right?
Yeah, but I just want to thank you for that, because they're such a high quality, and it's being, managing the festival, being inside of the film festival. It's so hard to find very good lesbian films. And I don't really know why. Maybe you do. Maybe you can answer that. And how do you see the lesbian industry evolving, and what kind of films you want to see, and what kind of things you don't want to see anymore? Helen.
Well, my partner actually says the same thing. I just came out as queer 4 or 5 years ago, even though I've always kind of identified that way. There wasn't really a word for queer. I don't know if you guys can relate to that. But when I was growing up, not to sidetrack, because I'll answer your question, I promise. But when I was growing up in my teens and 20s and throughout, there wasn't really this word queer that I couldn't relate to gay, straight, or bi my whole life, And so when those questions would come up, I was just always like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm just dating whoever the fuck I want. But that said, my partner, she's been out since she's been in her teens, and she has constantly said, even through our relationship, there's not enough content. There's not enough lesbian content. There's nothing for me to watch. There's nothing for me and my friends to watch. When are you going to make something? So that was part of being post as well. So, I don't know why. I mean, I've seen a lot of incredible content in the last few years, especially. And, there's older filmmakers like Cheryl Dinier, and, there's other filmmakers that were creating content years ago. But now I feel like, thankfully, there really is a lot more content coming from lesbian directors, lesbian writers, lesbian critics. I mean, we're not going to overstate the obvious. Lena Waithe, God bless her, she's a goddess. So honestly, I watch 20s and I want more stuff like that. Like, to me, 20s is just fantastic. And this past year, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, there have been so many, and they sort of run the gamut, I think, now, between great sitcoms and funny content like 20s that also deal with a lot of issues, and, just more of this. I think we're actually on a really good path. Queer cinema, lesbian cinema, gay cinema. I think it's incredible what's going on content-wise. So I don't really have that many complaints right now. It might change, because who knows? Maybe I hope the wave keeps riding higher. So yeah.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. The content that's been coming out in the last couple of years from a film perspective has been really exciting. But I definitely hope to see more. I think that from a film and from a TV perspective, I think there's so much amazing TV, and the way that TV has evolved has been so incredible, but there really aren't many great lesbian storylines, right? Like, you always kind of come back to the L word because that's the example.
Yeah, I think that what I was really excited to be a part of this with Katie and Matt, and of course Heather, is it's a comedy. we don't often see too many lesbian comedies, and it touches on the real shit about everything, getting hit on in bars, getting hit on wherever, from older men, younger men, just anybody in general, but just having a normalcy to it. We wanted to make it funny, but in the serious connotation that this is funny because it's a real shitstorm that happens. And too often it's depressing and it's dark, and somebody, loses a husband to go to a new lover or whatever. And I think that's what was really great. And then having Katie direct us was just amazing, because she's just a hardcore feminist and was like, yeah, let's kick everybody in the balls with it. So it was cool.
Yeah.
I also would like to say just one little point that I think is a really important part of our film, is that people are, in general, as far as lesbians go especially, it's really hard for people to put too attractive or whatever. There's not like a more masculine and a feminine energy. They can accept a masculine and a feminine, because in their mind they can replace the masculine woman with a man, and they can somehow make sense out of it. But when they see two women that neither really are either or, they have such a hard time still accepting that as a valid relationship. And also, we try to take it as if it's two girls that we talk about in the bar, just trying to get attention because they kiss each other. Which, again, is still the meanest thing in general. But, like, it's just, two people loving each other doesn't have to fit any type of gender role.
Yeah, right.
Well, to that point, actually, if I can add, which is absolutely true, like 100%, it's really interesting because, again, like having these conversations during the process of making this film, and, my partner is masculine presenting, and she's always saying to me that there aren't enough films and shows that present that way too. So it's sort of like you kind of can't win too. Like it's either way, but so it was like when we were doing the casting, it was really important for me to cast an actor that was either non-binary or a lesbian or queer in, their everyday life. So it wasn't just, play acting for somebody, and also to represent for my partner too, because I kept hearing her say that, and I started thinking about it, and I was like, she's kind of right. Like, except for Leah Delaria, and like you think of these names that are masculine presenting, and there just aren't that many of them in the past. So again, back to Lena Waithe in 20s, that was really cool too, because not only is she masculine presenting, but she's Black, and there's all these other elements that you don't normally see represented. So I think it's really cool. But I absolutely 100% agree with you guys, of course.
It comes back to the lack of content in general, right? There's just a lack of representation, period, across the board.
Yeah.
It's not like, looks lesbian or looks queer. What does that look like? It's just,
right.
We're human, and we are who we are, and we love who we love. We must do that more.
Yeah. And I think, to your point, to tie that into what Kirstie was saying earlier, so many of the lesbian films are like, oh, this woman's leaving her husband, or she cheats on her husband and realizes she's gay or whatever. So many of the films are like that. And I think that's probably where the presenting more feminine kind of ties in.
Yeah. I hate that storyline too. It's just such a trope. Like, lesbian leaving her husband. I always hated that trope.
Yeah.
Because it also ties you to a man. It ties your identity to a man either way, which is crazy, because it's like, so I just I don't like that.
Yeah, and it's back to your point on binary, that it's always very binary, that there is no fear that if you leave your husband, then you have to be a lesbian, you have to be labeled, and I think, is it the first year that when we started bisexual program? I think we didn't have it before. Yeah, so this is 2020, and it's the first year we have bisexual program, because there wasn't enough content. There was it's the first year when we started. We added non-binary to our trans program, And before there was nothing. We tried to find, but there is nothing. And yeah, so it is very exciting.
Wow. That's good.
So what's your next step, and what are you working on right now, Helen? You told me a little bit about you. Can you say it on camera?
Well, I've actually this year I've been able to finish a couple of scripts, which has been really nice. I'm working on a feature film about Janis Joplin's senior year of high school. So that's one. And then I've got a pilot that I've been working on about, it's like Big Little Lies meets Girls 10 years later with a bit of an entourage, but all women. About women working in the fashion entertainment industry in LA, the dark underside belly of it. Because what's more fun than the dark underside belly of anything? Yeah, so those are the projects that I'm really working on. I've got a couple of things that I have options. They're all, they're all kind of related content in this form. So
Awesome. That's very exciting. So what about you, Matt?
Well, I'm continuing to work with Heather and Kirstie and Katie. We have a great little thing going, and right now, after Femme Theory, we have another little short film that we did. This one I directed, and we're in the middle of production on a web series, and we're continuing with the content we're producing to try to produce content that is diverse. And I think what's exciting about that, at least I'm 44 years old. I've been working in movies since I was a kid. This is all I ever wanted to do, and what I think a lot of people, especially white hetero men like me, don't understand. I do, but they don't. Is that this diversity coming is actually a fantastic thing, because we're going to get better stories instead of the same old shit, and it actually will make things better in general, because it will force men like me to raise their game and write better stories. So everyone go, oh, movies suck nowadays. Well, look at this golden age of TV. It's not an accident that it's more diverse than it ever was. That's not an accident. It's because we're not getting the same old shit anymore. And like Heather and I, the web series we're working on, we have brought in, it was my idea, Heather and I developed it. We've brought in a diverse cast. We've had so far a black male director, a woman director, I've directed, and we're looking at doing more episodes. We're looking at bringing in more women writers and more directors, and just making it that way. And that's how these stories are going to get to where they are. And one of the episodes we've already shot, thanks to Matt Robinson, who was a black man who directed one of the episodes, he came up with ideas I would have never thought of because of his perspective, and it's only going to make the web series great, and better than it ever was going to be. And that's what diverse voices do. So the content I'm producing with these amazing women is just very exciting.
That's so cool.
Yeah, everything Matt said is very exciting. And then we made a short earlier in quarantine, just like needing an outlet. At the beginning, mid-April, we were kind of starting to lose it. So we made a short that just got accepted to its first festival. So that was super exciting. Two-person team. I mean, we did the whole thing. We did the lighting and shot it and edited it and everything here in our house.
With our iPhone.
Yeah, with an iPhone 11.
And it was beautiful.
That was, thank you. That was really fun. And the fact that it's getting some attention is really exciting, because we did not create it for that.
Yeah.
And then everything Matt said, and I have a bunch of other stuff in pre-production, including a lesbian pilot. Like I was just talking about how we need more of that, kind of an ensemble piece. We kind of describe it as Sex in the City meets How I Met Your Mother meets the L Word. So,
Wow.
it's a fun one. So keep an eye out for that.
Katie, so you are collaborating with them, with all of them together, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. We also have a huge feature we're working on. Heather's producing. Me, Kirstie are part of it also, but that'll be in Oakland. So that's a big feature, and that's got a whole other thing going on. I actually I don't know if you guys can see the blood kind of.
I was like, what?
I was wondering about that.
No, yeah, that could be something, but it's not. No, I'm producing, co-producing, co-directing, and Kirstie actually on a short film that we shot last night until about 4 a.m. And there was a lot of blood involved. So it's like it just keeps finding itself all over me. Everywhere.
It's a lesbian horror movie.
It's not really a horror movie. It's more of kind of like a weird, I don't know. It involves Shakespeare. It involves a deadly rash. It involves quarantine. It's got a whole bunch of layers to it.
That's so cool. Well, thank you so much, guys. I think we all really needed this conversation, especially in this crazy year. Thank you and good luck with all your projects. I'm so excited for you. And please let us know what you end up with.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Part of
Bye.